Hi everyone. I'm just coming back around to looking at some of my guns. This was my very first handgun. I picked this up in 2017. Actually, I think it was 2016 towards the end. But after doing a lot of research, I came down to looking at a Glock and an M&P and considered like two other ones. Can't recall what they were at this time, but I remember the last two were down to a Glock and an M&P. When I looked at most of the M&Ps, I looked at the standard ones, which looked a little on the plain side, but then again, so did the Glock. So at that point, I was leaning more towards the Glock just because of brand familiarity. And then I went to a local gun shop with a family member. They went to go shoot a couple of shotguns. As we were leaving, we stopped by and looked at some of the guns they had on display. And I saw this one. It was those slide serrations that really like caught my attention because as it was sitting in the display case, it was angled like that. You could, as I was approaching it, I could see the slide cuts and the barrel shining through it. Obviously, it didn't have any of the accessories. This was brand new when I bought it, so it didn't have any alterations like the trigger or anything like that. But I really, really liked it. It was quite a bit of money though. I At that particular shop, which is still kind of the same way to this day, everything is MSRP. Any specials they have are ridiculous. It'll be a $1,200 gun. It's on special. It's $20 off. It's that kind of shop. But it's where I went to go shoot. And again, I was just there. I at that point had no guns. I was just there with a family member checking out their gun. When I saw this one, kind of fell in love with it. And at the time, I had saved up enough that, I could have afforded it to buy it right then and there, but I didn't. I just looked it up online, started doing research on the different M&Ps until I found this one, the Performance Center, which wasn't exactly the same, but then this is the Performance Center long, M&P 9 long, which is the 5 inch, and of course the slide cuts. One thing I wasn't sure of because I knew nothing about it was the porting. This was originally going to be my one and only gun, which also meant it had to serve as a home defense gun, and I wasn't sure about the porting. For that, I looked it up. People had opinions on it. In the end, it didn't really matter. So the next time I went by there, I went with the intent of purchasing a gun. So I had enough to buy any standard handgun that I wanted because I didn't want my first gun to be what I could barely afford or the cheapest thing that was there. So I wanted to make sure I had enough to cover a standard gun. To me, a standard gun was somewhere between $500 to $600. And this one I knew was 804. I remember that because that's an unusual MSRP with a 4 at the end. So I kept looking at other guns thinking something else would persuade me to go a different route, less expensive. Again, most uh, 4 to 5 inch guns were close to four to $600 range at the time that I was looking. But this one kept calling out to me, and I decided to go for it. It was the first time I'd ever done the background check and all of that. So I went, was going to purchase it, did the background check. They had me do the background check first, and then I got a delay. So what they ended up doing was charging me everything minus $1. So technically the sale's not made. It's just essentially putting the gun on hold, but they pretty much charged me the whole thing. So 3 very long, excruciating days went by, and then I got a call. Hey, you can come pick up your gun. And it's just because they didn't get a response from them. I quickly went right after work, card in hand, paid for it, took it home. Then I decided after doing all this research, I'm going to get my carry license. They had a class scheduled at the end of that same week. And I recall that I picked up the gun on a Thursday because the class was scheduled on a Saturday. So I looked around, what do I need? Box of Full Metal Jacket 50 round. Got that, got the box, went home, looked at it, eyed it. That was about it. My first time shooting this gun was at the range for the test, the proficiency test of my CCL. As you can imagine, I mean, I did pass the first time around. It wasn't anything crazy, but I far from had amazing groups considering the distances and the gun that I had. The range officer, I remember, kind of chuckled as he walked by because he sees me opening up the case, removing the plastic that was still covering it. If you bought some of the Smith and Wessons, you know, they come with that little clear and on one side in like a blue little bag that is the sleeve that it slides into, along with that little oil paper. So yeah, here I am essentially unwrapping my gun at the range. I passed, I did okay, and I shot this gun a lot. I would buy 250 rounds once a week, and Friday, payday, I'd hit the range, and I got as good as I could get with this gun, at least what I thought it was as good as I could get with no alterations. Started looking at red dots, and of course when you're new to guns, everything sounds expensive. So if you're telling me it's going to be $200 for a red dot, I'm like, that's insane. That's a significant amount. It's X amount of the gun, cost of the gun. And I bought the burst fast fire for it. I recall that my first experience with a red dot, the burst fast fire 3. It fit okay, it was all right. It was just small. I didn't really like the way that it looked, but you know, it worked. And my groups did get better. Then I decided I'm going to go ahead and do small little upgrades to it. The best one by far that I've done on any gun, including this one, is the trigger, a trigger upgrade. This one got the Apex. It was an amazing, amazing difference. Later on, I went ahead and got the Delta Pro. I still don't like the way that they never made a plate for it, besides this one, which is I think is really thick. Considering it's been out for a while, I haven't seen anyone make a better plates. And it sits high. These are already suppressor height sights. I went ahead and just blacked them out only because you can't really co-witness. The optic is way too high. I did customize it with a little back plate, but for the most part, it's just the dot, which again, it's a core option, so it comes with it. I didn't have to get anything cut, so I don't really consider that a customization, just adding an accessory. The only thing I've done is the trigger and the mag release. I wanted the extended one, and I did want it to be metal. This is reversible. It is one of the only ones that I know of that was reversible at the time. I love these palm swells that you can interchange. They were the first ones that I'm aware of that had that, at least anyone that I knew of locally. The beaver tail, I remember thinking about shaving this off, but I actually like it. It's not a carry gun, so I don't need that to be flat, but I do really like the way that kind of helps push down on my hand. No mag well, I didn't find the need for it. Because this was going to be my everything gun, I decided to add a lights. I looked up several. I went with the Surefire XC1 because I liked the way it looked. It wasn't like crazy large, and I'm thinking indoors, which the light is definitely enough for indoors, not so much outdoors, but again, I'm thinking home defense at this point. And because I wanted that as a home defense, I wanted more rounds as well. So I got this Terran Tactical base plate +5. It says +5 or 6, but realistically I get 5 in there. I'm sure I could get 6 if I really smashed it, but that's realistically what it's gonna be fitting, is the 5. At least in mine. Maybe the springs are a little different in others, but for mine it's 5. +5 9mm, and that is of course on top of these standard 17 round magazines. I did get these painted, or I didn't get them painted, but I did it myself, just some modeling paint. I found that this helped a lot, just to easily be able to look at the numbers. This gun has definitely been my favorite. Its nickname is Killer because I've had 2 NDs with this one. And of course they were both indoors. And that is because of the extremely, extremely light trigger. It's still dirty from the last time I took it out to the range. I will be taking this out tomorrow, so I'll be doing it, giving it a quick clean in a bit. And I'll see if I can post some video of me shooting this. But this gun has been awesome. I've had zero issues with this gun, which is something I can't say for all of my guns. For $804, it was a gun I was going to take care of. This is definitely one of my forever guns, being that it's my very first pistol. I know a lot of people have stories of regretting selling their first pistols for various reasons. I didn't want to do that. So I ended up just deciding, modifying this, making it perfect for me, which is where the left-handed stuff comes into play, and then just kind of moving forward with that. I hope to keep it forever. I hope nothing ever happens to it. It is a polymer frame, so that does worry me a little bit. But we'll see how that goes. So far, it's worked out perfectly. For me, this is also the gun that I learned pretty much how to do the basics with almost all the guns. I installed the trigger myself. I learned how to do just a basic takedown. I never really use that little bar. The Smith & Wessons have that little bar that you can push down. That way you don't have to squeeze the trigger. I just pull the trigger. Very Glockish. But yeah, I learned how to do everything on this gun. The basics, modifications. I disassembled everything completely just to learn how to do it. And it was scary at the time. Again, $800, a lot of money. To take it completely apart and knowing if I could put it back together. And worst case scenario, if I got stuck somewhere, I knew it was going to still cost me, money to get a gunsmith to look at it and hope that I didn't bend or break anything myself in the process. It did come with this steel guide rod. I took off some of the black just by sanding that off. I just thought it matched the barrel a little bit better. This is the original barrel. I recall when I first got this, I was going to try to get a threaded barrel for it. I finally found one, but it was ridiculously expensive. It's over $250, and this gun is long enough. And at the time, I didn't even have a suppressor, nor was I even thinking about one. I just thought threaded barrels look cool, and we all know it's just about how cool things look. That's, at some level. So yeah, this is still a really awesome gun. I sometimes regret getting so many guns, but it's only because I can't shoot them all as often as I'd like. It's mainly money and the fact that I don't have my own range. I know it sounds kind of extreme saying that I don't have my own range, but it's a lot nicer to be able to grab a gun, go outside, and just enjoy shooting versus making a whole trip of going down to some place and getting in line, paying for shooting a short amount of time, and then feeling like you have to hurry up and go. I'm not really a fan of that. But if I had my own place, obviously money would also be an issue because of the ammo. Like I said, I used to shoot 250 rounds every week with this gun because I was very excited. My first insight into firearms was this gun. So I thought that was super awesome. And then what made it even better for me is I got the exact gun that I wanted because I saved, because I waited. I was able to get the gun that I wanted, not just whatever I could have, afford at the time. I went that extra mile to make sure. Love that trigger. This sits at just under 3 pounds. And the recoil on this is very manageable. There you go. Feel like I can't speak. Nothing's worn out on it that needs replaced just yet, even though I did shoot it a lot. I did at one point kind of put it in the safe, started getting more into rifles, and then I got a carry gun, and pretty much the list went on and on. But this is still one of my favorites. I made my carry gun, my M&P, the 9 compact, the 4-inch, 4.25 actually for the slide. It's a 4-inch to make the gun that I wanted. I ended up getting two guns. I got the 4-inch, and then I got the 4 1/4. It's the only one that had the slide cuts on it. And I switched out the frame with the slide, and it works. It was a 1.0 slide on a 2.0 frame, and I was able to get that to work. But I did it to mimic this very gun. I wanted it to have a look. Obviously it's shorter, so it doesn't have that extra length. I added the same lights. I did put a Trigicon RMR on mine. I just knew I wanted it to co-witness if it was going to be a carry gun, and this one, I could have done it with this one by switching the optic, but I think the Delta Point Pro is still one of the best optics for target shooting. It's got the best window. It's not only large, but it's also very clear. So I thought that was really cool. I'm like, I'm gonna leave it that way, and I'll just modify the carry gun, which is what I did. So this is still, again, one of my favorite guns to shoot and just to look at. I really like the way that it looks. I love the way it feels till this very day. And I have some other really nice guns, at least in my opinion. I think they're really nice, like the 2011s, 1911s, some of the J-frame revolvers, some of the other striker fires like the custom Glocks and all of that. But this one I just think looks mean. It looks aggressive. It looks awesome. I at one point had this with the painted letters, just white, because I thought it matched just the black and white look of it. But I decided to just clear them all off. I figured just leave everything black. It just looks much nicer that way, and it doesn't take away from the gun. So I don't know what your favorite 9mm is or what your favorite gun is, but mine is still my very first gun, and this gun has served me well. No issues with it, as I mentioned before, and I do plan on going to shoot this tomorrow. When I die, bury this gun with me.